All right, so imagine a locked room psychological thriller. But here's the catch. Nobody speaks a single word.
Sounds like a blessing, frankly, given modern scripts.
No, hear me out. The tension is unbearable, the air is thick with paranoia, and the main weapon being used against the characters is literally their own shadow.
Right.
That is what audiences were subjected to in 1923. And I was reminded of it recently while digging through this massive, absolute brick of a book.
Oh, not that heavy compendium you've been lugging around.
Yes. Cinema, The Magic Vehicle, Journey 1, 1913 to 1950. Honestly, cracking this thing open completely validated something I've been saying for ages.
Oh, here we go.
We are just drowning in modern remakes, aren't we? To you listening, you know exactly what I mean. It's just reboot after reboot.
Well, yeah, the studios are terrified of original ideas. That's nothing new.
Exactly. But then you look back at the actual foundations of film, and you find these forgotten, properly genius masterpieces that completely rewrite how you understand visual storytelling.
A masterpiece. Let me guess what you're bringing up.
I am talking about a forgotten, silent German expressionist film called Warning Shadows.
Cinema, The Magic Vehicle, A Comprehensive Guide. Journey 1, 1913 to 1950.
Or Schatten, eine nächtliche Halluzination, if we're being precise.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me just stop you right there.
Hello?
A properly genius masterpiece. Are you actually joking?
I'm dead serious. It is absolutely brilliant. It's a masterclass that proves we have completely lost the art of...
Mate, no. We haven't lost anything except maybe our patience. I've seen Warning Shadows. It is the very definition of a claustrophobic shambles.
Our shambles.
Yes. Look, early German expressionism is frankly a bit overhyped to begin with.
Oh, come off it.
No, it is. Everyone raves about the twisted angles and the moody lighting, but this specific film, it's rather dull.
It is not dull.
It is a tedious, drawn-out bourgeois melodrama that is desperately masquerading as high intellectual art.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to you listening right now, this is the exact crux of the fierce debate we are having today.
It's not a debate. I'm just telling you you're wrong.
Are we looking at a century-old silent film that is a hidden treasure of early cinema, or, as my highly cynical friend here reckons, something that rightly belongs in the dustbin of history?
Dustbin, definitely.
Because I am telling you, the structural constraints alone on this film are mind-blowing.
Well, constraints is certainly the right word for it, yes. You feel incredibly constrained watching it. It's suffocating.
Hear me out. Let me actually explain what they pulled off. The film is deeply connected to Karl Mayer's Kammerspiel dramas.
Right, the chamber plays.
Exactly. Now, for you listening, Kammerspiel literally translates to chamber play. It was this movement that stripped away the grand, sprawling sets and massive casts.
Mostly because they didn't have the budget, but sure.
No, it was an artistic choice. It focused on incredibly intimate, brutal, psychological intensity. And Arthur Robeson, the director, obeys the strict, ancient classical unities of theater here.
Oh, the unities. We're doing Greek theater now, are we?
Yes. Unity of action. There are no side plots. It's just a tight, 6-character intrigue about a jealous husband, his flirtatious wife, and her suitors.
Thrilling stuff.
And unity of place. We never ever leave this singular, oppressive, candlelit country mansion.
Which gets very boring very quickly.
And unity of time. The whole story plays out roughly in real time over the course of this one incredibly awkward dinner party. And here is the kicker.
I'm waiting. 0
intertitles.
Which is exactly why it's a mess.
No, it's a triumph.
Yeah.
There are no text cards popping up every 10 seconds to explain what people are saying or feeling. You have to deduce everything from overwhelming, raw emotion.
To guess, you mean?
No. From the intense light and shadow. Imagine being trapped in an escape room where the walls are closing in, but you have to figure out the interpersonal dynamics purely through body language.
Right.
The tension just builds and builds.
We're making it sound like some slick, high-octane modern thriller, and it is absolutely not.
It was for 1923.
It's not David Fincher, mate. Those unities you're raving about, they just make it a total slog. It's a group of wealthy, posh people pacing around a gloomy house looking upset.
They are terrified.
And casting Fritz Kortner as the main husband? Come on, that wasn't some stroke of avant-garde casting genius.
It was a brilliant performance.
That was just textbook expressionist typecasting.
What are you on about? Kortner's performance is spot on. He is vibrating with sheer paranoia.
His face is practically doing all the heavy lifting for the entire production because the man naturally looked like a jealous, terrifying obsessive.
He knew how to use his feature?
In the 1920s, if you needed a man on the verge of a violent mental breakdown, Fritz Kortner was the go-to bloke.
Because he was good at it.
Because silent film lacked spoken dialogue, so they relied entirely on visual shorthand. Cast a guy who looks inherently unhinged, and you don't need a script.
That is so reductive.
It's not subtle acting. He just glares, sweats, and heaves his chest for an hour and a half.
But the micro-expressions. When you don't have dialogue to rely on, the slightest twitch of the jaw or darting of the eyes becomes monumental.
It's just jaw, right.
Kortner carries the weight of a man slowly losing his grip on reality entirely on his shoulders.
Right. Well, what's fascinating here is I will actually give you one minor point.
Oh, well, thank you.
The film is highly untypical for early German cinema in a structural sense.
Exactly.
If you look at the heavy hitters of that era, your Cabinet of Dr. Caligaris or your Nosferatus, they are dripping with absolute fatalism.
Complete despair, yeah.
Right, complete impotence in the face of terror. The monster always wins or the world is revealed to be inherently mad. But Warning Shadows is an odd duck.
It really is.
It actually features a bit of humor and, shockingly, an optimistic ending where human reason actually overcomes base violent instinct.
Which is incredibly refreshing.
So structurally, yes, it's an outlier. But let me quickly add that being an outlier doesn't excuse the incredibly slow pacing.
Oh, come on.
It takes ages for anything to actually happen.
Wait. Takes ages. You are completely ignoring how the story's actually being told.
I'm watching people stand in a room.
You are treating the narrative like it's the only thing that matters. The plot is just the skeleton. The flesh, the blood, the beating heart of this film is the visual illusion.
Oh, the illusions?
I am honestly godsmacked that you aren't geeking out over Albin Grau's art direction.
Albin Grau was a talent, obviously. He did the production design for Nosferatu. But
She was a visionary. Because the shadows in this film, the literal warning shadows, they aren't just spooky background props.
they're just lighting tricks.
They're the actual subject matter of the film. There is this one scene, and to you listening, picture the geometry of this room because it is a bloody, brilliant piece of optical illusion.
Here we go.
The Count, Kortner's character, is standing across the dining hall. He looks over and sees the shadow of his beautiful wife and the shadow of the lover, played by Gustav von Wangenheim. And projected on the wall, their massive silhouettes are touching hands. It's this incredibly intimate, damning, undeniable image of infidelity.
Yeah, I remember it.
But in reality, if you pan the camera, the actual human beings are standing far apart in the room.
I know.
Only their projected shadows overlap because of the specific angle of the light. It is pure visual poetry.
That's rubbish, mate. Pure visual poetry. It's a parlor trick.
It is a profound manifestation of his internal jealousy.
It's a lighting gimmick. Let's explain how they actually did it rather than romanticizing it.
It's still brilliant, however they did it.
Relying on diaphanous screens, which is just a fancy word for stretching massive sheets of semi-transparent muslin across the set and blasting heavy arc lamps from behind to create looming silhouettes.
That takes incredible skill.
Or shooting into strategically placed mirrors to bend light around corners so two completely separate shadows merge on one wall.
Exactly. Technical mastery.
Dramatic shadows stretching up the stairs. Look, these are tired, textbook expressionist tropes. Audiences had seen it all before. And don't even get me started on the costume.
The costumes are gorgeous.
They are a joke.
They add this incredible layer of timeless tragedy to the whole thing.
They're a crutch, a total crutch. They use these pre-romantic E.T.A. Hoffman-style period costumes.
Wait, let me just jump in to clarify for the listener. E.T.A. Hoffman was a 19th century author famous for the deeply uncanny Gothic fairy tales.
Right.
Think the Nutcracker, but the original, slightly terrifying version. The costumes in the film have that frilly, waistcoated, slightly bizarre antique vibe.
Exactly. And why did they use them?
For the atmosphere.
No. Simply as a cheap way to stress the erotic nature of the subject without getting censored.
That's a massive assumption.
It's historically accurate. If you said a story about rampant infidelity and sexual jealousy in a modern 1923 Berlin apartment, the censors would throw a fit.
Well, sure, censorship was strict.
But if you dress everyone up in frilly 19th century waistcoats and corsets, suddenly it's historical and artistic.
It is artistic.
It's a loophole. It's
Right.
just dressing up a very basic tawdry story of a bad marriage in fancy clothes to make it look profound.
I can't believe I'm hearing this from you. You're stripping all the magic out of it.
I am looking at it objectively.
The cinematography by Fritz Arno Wagner and Hugo von Koczynski, let me make sure I get his name right. It is an eloquent, masterful perfection of the medium.
Perfection is a strong word.
This is exactly what cinema was meant to be before sound came in. Before actors just stood around reading dialogue and ruined pure visual storytelling.
Ruined it. Oh, please.
Yes, they had to convey an entire tragic romance, an entire psychological breakdown, using nothing but light bulbs, mirrors, and bedsheets.
Yeah.
It forces the audience to actively decipher the image.
Yes, and they managed to make deciphering the image feel like a 2-hour lecture on a bad marriage.
Okay, well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because you keep dismissing it as just a bad marriage, but halfway through, the film shatters that reality.
Ah, yes, the pivot.
It morphs into an absolute psychological nightmare. The whole film pivots on this incredibly clever story within a story mechanism.
Clever is debatable.
So they're at this terribly tense dinner party, right? Everyone is sweating. And suddenly, this itinerant shadow master arrives.
Right out of nowhere.
He's played by Alexander Granach, who is incredibly creepy. Missing teeth, wild eyes.
Subtlety was not his strong suit.
And he essentially decides to put on a Hamlet-esque silhouette play for the wealthy guests in the dining room. A literal shadow puppet show about a cuckolded husband and a cheating wife.
Which is completely subtle, obviously. Hello, rich people. I'm here to do a puppet show highlighting the exact awkward romantic triangle you are currently trying to ignore over your soup.
It's meant to be a catalyst. Because this shadow play isn't just entertainment.
Clearly not.
It triggers a mass hypnosis session among the guests. The film actually throws up a subtitle here, one of its very few text cards in the entire runtime.
Finally giving us something to read.
And it says, eine nächtliche Hallucination, a nocturnal hallucination. And under this hypnosis, the repressed, dark, subconscious thoughts of these real-life characters are completely unleashed.
It goes completely off the rail.
The husband hallucinates that his wife is actually seduced by the lover right in front of him. He goes completely mad with jealousy.
Shocking.
He orders his servants to tie her up with thick ropes, to literally stab her with swords.
Yeah, that bit is fairly grim.
And then, in a twist, the servants turn on him. They hoist the husband up and throw him out of a towering window onto the cobbled street below.
It's violently unhinged.
It's a masterpiece of psychological projection.
A masterpiece.
Yes. I was reading Lott H. Eisner's book, The Haunted Screen, which, if you're listening, is basically the definitive Bible for this specific era of German cinema.
It is a good book, I'll give you that.
And she argues that Warning Shadows perfectly illustrates this very specific, crucial cultural moment. You have to remember the context. This is 1923.
The Weimar Republic.
Exactly. Germany has just been shattered by the First World War. The economy is in ruins. Hyperinflation is rampant. People are literally taking wheelbarrows of cash to buy a loaf of bread.
Things were bleak.
The society's broken. And Eisner talks about how stereotypical, polite, bourgeois attitudes in Germany were masking this deeply demonic, traumatized side of the national psyche.
Right.
People were wearing fancy suits but completely broken inside. As the book quotes, "When reason sleeps, the ghosts appear."
Very poetic.
That is what the hypnosis scene is. It is a profound visual exploration of the repressed subconscious violently bubbling to the surface.
You can't be serious. You're really buying into the whole psychoanalytic angle here. Lock, stock, and barrel.
It's right there on the screen. He literally hallucinates his deepest, darkest Freudian desires and fears.
It's incredibly heavy-handed. Let's look at the director, Arthur Robeson.
He was a genius.
He was an American who was brought up in Germany, right? But before he ever picked up a megaphone to be a film director, he was a medical doctor.
Which gives him insight into the human mind.
He was clearly heavily influenced by Sigmund Freud, who was the absolute rock star of psychiatry at the time.
Exactly.
And I'm telling you, applying rigid Freudian psychoanalysis directly to a film narrative usually results in a complete clinical mess.
I don't think it's a mess at all. I think it's a brilliant translation of internal psychology into external imagery.
Oh, it's dodgy in places. Borderline. Mental.
A mental.
Yes. And we have to look at the actual foundation of what Robeson is trying to say here. You have Richard Webster in his book Why Freud Was Wrong, who completely dismantles this stuff.
Well, hindsight is 20/20.
Webster calls Freud's work a complex pseudoscience and honestly one of the great follies of Western civilization.
That's a bit extreme.
Freud's ideas about the id and repressed violent sexual desires are highly controversial today. So you have this director, Robeson, using a scientifically dubious framework of repressed Victorian steam and splashing it all over the screen with a shadow puppet show.
But it works for the narrative.
It's not a profound reflection of the Weimar Republic's soul. It's just a doctor playing amateur psychologist with a camera.
I think you are being incredibly harsh and, frankly, a bit historically blind.
Am I?
Yes. It's true that Freud is highly contested today, obviously.
Yes.
And we're not sitting here endorsing his psychoanalysis as absolute, flawless scientific fact.
Good, because it isn't.
But you have to understand the cultural context of the 1920s. People were desperately trying to make sense of human brutality post-World War I.
Sure.
Why did millions of men just slaughter each other in trenches? Freud offered an explanation. Underneath our polite, civilized exterior is a raging, violent beast.
Right, the id.
And yes, other directors failed at putting this on screen. I mean, G.W. Pabst did that film in 1926, Geheimnis einer Seele, Secrets of a Soul.
Oh, that was awful.
Exactly. It was a disastrous, painfully literal attempt to film psychoanalysis. It felt like reading a medical textbook.
Agreed.
But Robeson succeeds where Pabst failed.
I wouldn't call it a success.
Why does he succeed? Because Robeson uses humor.
Humor. The man hallucinates his wife being tied up and stabbed to death with swords, mate. I must have missed the punchline.
It's the theatricality of it.
Yeah.
He uses a touch of the absurd as a defense against just being naive or purely clinical, which leads perfectly to the ending.
Oh, here we go. The ending.
The bizarre, completely wild finale.
It is definitely wild.
So the hallucination snaps to an end. The host wakes up sweating, terrified. And the real-life story wraps up at about 5 minutes flat.
Mercifully.
The guests realize what almost happened. They saw the absolute darkness in the host's heart, and they hurriedly, awkwardly flee the mansion without a word.
I would too.
The husband and wife are happily reconciled, having somehow purged their demons through this shared vision.
Which makes total psychological sense.
And the Shadow Master, the creepy guy who caused all this psychological trauma, he walks out into the bright morning dawn, and he literally rides off on a pig,
A literal farm pig.
while a peasant crosses himself in the background. It is so wonderfully weird.
It's baffling. It is tonally, completely out of nowhere. A man rides a pig. Brilliant. Cinematic genius, clearly.
It punctures the tension. It is Robeson winking at the audience.
Is it?
Yes. It says, yes, we just explored the terrifying depths of the human id, but don't take this nightmare too seriously. It's just a movie.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that bizarre pig riding ending perfectly encapsulates why Arthur Robeson's career completely tanked in the long run.
Oh, come on. He made other films.
You have this massive book you've been reading, Cinema, the Magic Vehicle, praising the so-called magic of his work.
Because it is magical.
But out in the real world, his critical success with Warring Shadows was absolutely not a passport to lasting fame.
Well, the industry changed incredibly fast.
The industry moved on from his gimmickry. Look at his 1929 silent adaptation of The Informer.
That's a solid film.
It is completely, utterly forgotten today, entirely eclipsed by John Ford's 1935 sound version. Why?
Because Ford is a legend.
Because John Ford brought actual human realism to the screen. You could hear the clinking of glasses, the waver in an actor's voice, the genuine grit of the world.
Sound isn't everything.
Whereas Robeson was still stuck in this weird, heightened, hallucinatory shadow play that just alienated people.
That is deeply unfair. Ford had the advantage of sound. You cannot compare a 1929 silent film to a 1935 talkie. The technology literally shifted beneath Robeson's feet.
I can and I will.
It wasn't that his art was bad, it's that the medium completely mutated overnight.
But this raises an important question, doesn't it?
Which is?
For you listening, think about this. Are these silent films forgotten simply because someone invented a microphone? Or is it because they were actually just a bit too weird, a bit too alienating, and a bit too emotionally cold for general audiences?
We aren't cold.
When sound came in, audiences didn't just want dialogue. They wanted real human connection. They wanted characters they could relate to, not a 2-hour Freudian nightmare ending with a bloke riding a farm animal.
I fundamentally disagree that Warning Shadows lacks human connection.
It's like watching an experiment in a lab.
No, the fear of betrayal, the terror of your own mind turning against you, the feeling that you don't really know the person you married, that is universally deeply human.
It's melodrama.
So what does this all mean? To me, bringing all these threads together, Warning Shadows is a towering testament to the sheer, unadulterated power of visual storytelling.
A towering testament. Yeah.
It proves that seeking out classic cinema, digging past the black and white surface, offers these rich, atmospheric experiences that modern, slick, paint-by-numbers remakes just cannot touch.
Keep telling yourself that.
It shows us exactly how much you can communicate, how deeply you can pierce the human psyche without uttering a single word.
And to me, it means you shouldn't waste a fortnight trying to track down an obscure, overhyped, century-old film just because a thick textbook tells you it's a masterpiece.
It is a masterpiece.
It's a fascinating historical footnote for film students, sure. But as an evening's actual entertainment,
It is incredibly entertaining.
it's a tedious, locked-room shambles with dodgy psychology and lighting tricks you can figure out in 5 minutes. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Ignore his cynicism. Seriously, look past it. Because here's the thought I want to leave you with.
Oh, a final profound thought.
Yes, if early 1920s directors could completely manipulate human emotions and tap into our deepest, most violent subconscious fears using nothing but literal shadows on a bedsheet, a few well-placed mirrors, and brilliant actors,
What about it?
what blind spots do we have today? When modern media uses hyper-realistic CGI, deepfakes, and immersive spatial audio to completely bypass our rational brains, what are they doing to our subconscious?
That is actually a decent point.
Are our modern ghosts really gone? Or are they just better rendered? Think about that next time you sit in the dark at the cinema. Catch you next time.